Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Yarly G. Today, I am with a very special friend of mine, Mr. Megan Couture, also known as Al-Karim. It's very important how we perceive ourselves, the way our dress makes us feel, but people perceive us differently as well. And he is here to give us some pointers in terms of how we dress, how people can see us. Mr. American Couture, first question I have for you is, how should we dress when it comes to going out for an interview? And I want you to give this pointer for a woman.
Well, first of all, overall, each person that is going out for a job interview, the first thing you need to do is to research who you are actually going to be working for. Because different companies have different policies in how they would like their employees to dress. So if you're going to work for someone, you need to know what you're expected to look like when you show up. That's number one. And then dressing appropriately for the interview, for the job, and also dressing for the job that you want. You're not dressing for yourself. You're dressing for the job that you're trying to get. You said you want to talk about how the ladies should dress.
Yes.
First and foremost, I would say it's never appropriate to dress provocatively for a job interview unless you are working in an industry that is the type of job you're going after.
Like a stripper?
Right, like a stripper or exotic dancer or something of that nature. If those are not the jobs that you're going for, then it's not going to be appropriate to dress in that way. Women should be covered up for the most part. I mean, everybody should be covered up for a job interview. You don't want anything to be a distraction. So, low-cut blouses showing cleavage, skirts that are too high above the knee, or anything of that nature, even down to the type of jewelry that you're wearing, long dangly earrings, anything that's a distraction. Anything that's a distraction is never good for a job interview. You want the person that's interviewing you to pay attention to the fact that they're interviewing you. They need to pay attention to your resume. They need to pay attention to your answers to their questions. Ladies wearing clothes that are too tight or too revealing, it's never going to do you any justice. You don't ever want to be hired based on the fact that somebody just sort of kind of likes the way that you look, or they're looking at just your body parts. That's not the way to get hired. You need to get hired based on your merit, your resume, your background, or your job skill and your skill set.
Oh, awesome. So you hear that, ladies? It's you. It's mostly about you. So how about for the guys? What would you say is an appropriate way for the guys to dress to be successful at this interview?
Well, for the most part, when guys go for job interviews, you're pretty much going to be wearing a suit for the most part. The type of suit that you wear into a job interview can either get you hired or get you dismissed.
Right.
But the thing is, you're not going to really know that. And again, it all depends on where you're going for an interview at, who you're interviewing with. People take they take a look at what you're wearing. They look at the quality of clothing and things of that nature. You may not think that it makes a difference, but me personally, if somebody was coming to interview with me and I'm in the fashion industry or entertainment industry, and they came in a suit that was, the jacket didn't necessarily match the pants, and the material itself is inexpensive material, and then it's paired with a horrible tie, and then your shirt is not clean or pressed, or it's just a really bad color or whatever. All of that plays into a first impression that a person gets of you when you walk through the door. I believe that you are hired within the first the first minute of someone seeing you. That determines whether or not you're getting hired. It's really not so much about your resume. It's really not so much about, anything. Your first impression when the person walks in, and it's hard to change a first impression also.
So
you could
true.
be an expert at whatever it is that you do. But if someone has a bad first impression of you, then you'll never get past that with the person. They won't hear anything that you have to say. Your resume won't make a difference, and all of that. So I would say for the gentleman, invest in your clothing. I mean, it's for anybody. Invest in what you're wearing. But invest in a good suit or a good jacket and a good pair of slacks that coordinate well, depending on the job that you're applying for. Invest in silk ties, something with that has a nice look to it, not some crazy design, a whole bunch of crazy colors. And then also, if you know for a fact that you are not a fashion person, go hire a stylist. Go to a Neiman Marcus or Saks Fifth Avenue or Bloomingdale's or a store that provides a personal shopper and ask for help. It's very simple to say to someone, listen, I'm going for a job interview. I need to look professional. This is the type of job that I'm trying to get. People who work in retail, they see all of this all the time. So at the end of the day, they know what type of suit to put a person in. And then also, if a place provides a tailor on site, a tailor is able to tell somebody what's going to be the best fit for them because their job is to fit a person. Everybody is not built like Tyson Beckford or Naomi Campbell. Ooh. So at the end of the day, you need to be realistic about your, how you're built, your shape, so forth and so on. You don't have to go lose a whole bunch of weight to get a nice suit or a nice dress. You just have to accentuate what your assets are. So when people say to me, oh, I need to lose this weight or I need to do this or I need to do that before I dress up or go get pictures taken or this, that, and the other, I'm like, well, why are you losing weight? Like, that has nothing to do with anything. You can be any size, but the thing is, you have to know how to dress for your size, your weight, your height, your complexion, whatever the case may be. All of that stuff makes a huge difference.
Okay, you heard it here. So you could be at any height, short like me, or whether you're buffed up or not. You just got to find the appropriate dress that fits you and suits you well and makes you feel good and confident about who you are, what you're going for. Okay, moving on to the next question. So if I'm going on not an interview, because I know some people that may be watching this, they're not going for job interviews, but they may be going for a business meeting. Now, what would be your advice for someone who's doing a business meeting? I'm a business owner and I'm really trying to nail this contract with this client and I'm really trying to win it.
I still say dress up. I dress up everywhere I go. That's just me. Everybody doesn't do that. However, what I found is in all the years that I've dressed up everywhere that I go, it gets me more access than it would get a regular person. For instance, I was at Fashion Week. I went to a show for Fashion Week. I met someone in the audience because, before shows start, sometimes you're sitting there waiting for the show to start. I struck up a conversation with the person sitting next to me. And because I was dressed a certain way, at the end of that show, he turned to me and said, oh, you want to go to this other show with me? I have an extra ticket because I was dressed appropriately. Or I'm a professional makeup artist as well as being a stylist and designer. So I was doing a cover for a magazine and I ended up doing makeup for Randall Pinkett, Dr. Randall Pinkett, who actually won The Apprentice.
Okay.
So he contacted me after the fact and asked me would I be his makeup artist on some other projects. And because I always dress in a suit and bow tie, even when I'm going to do a job, like I don't dress like the people behind the camera. I always dress up as well. Like most people,
you're the star of the show.
Well, I mean, I just feel more comfortable being dressed up. I never dress down when I'm going out in public, especially if I'm going on a job. If I go on Fashion Week, I'm dressed up. If I go to do a job for a client, I'm dressed up because I don't know what more is going to be required, where we're going to possibly end up. And when I started working with Dr. Pinkett, he asked me to do his makeup for his, he had written a book. So I did his cover for his book. And then I did his makeup for his, when he was doing his book tour type thing. But the thing is, because I was always dressed in a suit, he would never say, meet me there. He would be like, ride with me in the limo.
Oh,
So rather than, right, because most people that you're working with are not going to ask you to ride with them in a
right.
limo, you
I
know.
don't know if you like that.
Right. So at the end of the day, I would say, you know, if you're trying to close a deal with anybody, you know, you need to dress up like you're going somewhere better after you're meeting with them. When I lived in Miami, what I noticed is that nobody there dressed up. Now, granted, it's 100 degrees every day.
Oh, yeah.
So nobody
Hot.
wants to wear a suit and all of that.
No.
However, you don't show up in flip-flops, you know, shorts
But
and
it's
a
100
t-shirt.
degrees, though.
I get it. I do. But me personally, I'm still going to dress up because for me, the decorum is, this is business. I need for you to think that we're doing business. I need to feel like I'm doing business with someone. And in Miami, everything was so laid back all the time. It's like, oh, we'll get to it when we get to it. If somebody showed up late, they showed up late, and they expected you to be sitting there waiting for them. Versus being in New York, if someone says, oh, meet me at such and such at 3:00.
Yeah.
If you get there at 3:10, you may have lost the job because everything in New York moves at a very fast pace. And I could be sitting, say if I'm meeting somebody in a bar or a lobby somewhere for our meeting, because people do that in New York, there may be somebody else there that does exactly what I do, who strikes up a conversation with the person you're supposed to meet with because you were 5 minutes late. And then the 5 minutes after that, when you do arrive, the person's like, oh yeah, we don't need to meet anymore. I met somebody who does exactly what you do. We got to talking and I gave him the job. Simple. You know, like so that. Yeah, I mean, so at the end of the day, me personally, I would dress up for any and every occasion. I dress up just to leave the house because I never know who I'm going to encounter while I'm out. What most people fail to realize is that you get offered about 7 opportunities every day. But most people don't know that because they're not looking for them. But there's at least 7 opportunities if you're out and about in the street somewhere.
7.
Yeah, you have to be aware that sometimes when someone's looking at you, there's something they might want to say to you. But if you're not paying attention, then there's never a conversation that ever happens. And just you may be wearing something that they like. You may look a certain way. Like I've owned 3 modeling agencies, and I could be on the subway and I could see somebody, and I'm like, and it'll pop in my head, that person should model. And that's how I've found a lot of people that have modeled for me over the years. I've found people on the subway, taken drug dealers off the corner, kids from the mall, or you know. But the thing is, you have to be paying attention. A lot of people are never paying attention, and then also being dressed to get attention. You know, that's how it's worked for me.
Dressing to make sure that you also get the attention as well. It's very important that you mentioned a little bit about meeting at a non-business location. So I want to dive into that too, especially when it comes to some of the art fields, the music industry, the film industry. Sometimes you're meeting in very non-professional settings. Even I can say for even jobs as well, like you would be going out. This is most likely after you've got a job. You guys go out at a bar, but you guys are hanging, getting affiliated. What would your suggestion be if it's a non-professional setting? Like, you know, you're going to meet a group of people in a non-professional settings, but you have no expectations of what business can go down there. How would you say to dress up? Let's say this is a music meeting. It's going down at 8 p.m. at night, and it's at a club venue. Now, what would your suggestion be for a case scenario like that?
I mean, dress for the club that you're going to, I suppose. If you're actually talking about a club, you dress for the club that you're going to. So I can
wear my fitted and bring my chains. And
if that's how you dress to go to the club, sure. I mean, but also you have to think about, how do you want the person that you're doing business with to perceive you? How do you want them to see you? Like, what image what image is important?
We're trying to get these millions. We're trying to close some transactions and make this money.
Well, I mean, then that's when you research the person that you are actually meeting with. Okay. And know how that person would dress, and sort of kind of mirror what you think or what you know about that person. How would they show up? The thing is, you want to try to show up the same way that person would. If they show up wearing a fitted and some chains, maybe you show up the same way because that's relatable to them. Okay. You know, I've dealt with everybody from thugs in the street to presidents of corporations
Yeah.
and things of that nature, and you sort of show up. You show up with what the person that you're doing business with is going to be comfortable with. I used to be editor in chief of a hip hop magazine, and so people were very put off with me when they met with me because I didn't dress like a hip hop person. So when they walked into the office, they were assuming that I was, I don't know, the receptionist or the secretary, and they were like, "Oh, I want to talk to the editor in chief." And then the owners never met with people unless they knew them personally for the most part. And the owners were regular, hood dudes.
Folks.
Hood, that's the best way I can put it.
Yeah.
They're just a regular hood dudes, but I was hired as the editor-in-chief of the magazine, so I'm the person that you would have to meet with. Well, initially, when people would walk into the office and see me, they didn't expect to see me. They just thought I was receptionist, so they talk crazy. And they like, "Oh, I want to see the owner." And I send them to the owner. And then 5 minutes later, they're sitting back in front of me because they don't do business with the owner. They have to do business with me as the editor-in-chief. But my thing is they would all come in their fitteds and their tennis shoes and things of that nature. That's just not how I dress. Because for me, even though it was a hip-hop magazine, it was a magazine.
Right.
It was a place of business, and it was a business that I needed for people to understand that you're not coming here to hang out. You're coming here to actually do business. And it's not about yo, son, what's good? No, it's sir, madam, lady, that type of thing. So for me, it was, you sort of kind of meet people where they are, but then also depending on where you are, if they're coming to your place of business, then they need to understand that they need to meet you where you're at, so to speak. So if you are out at a club somewhere, research the club that you're going to. How do people dress going there? Because the thing is, if you're going in someplace, you don't want to look out of place. Most places I
overdressed.
Yeah, like I go places mostly overdressed, and I'll sit in the back in a fur coat. Right. And everybody else is in fitteds and I'll order a cup of tea. I that literally happened one time. I was invited to a music showcase. I always sit in the back because I don't, really want any attention, but I always dress like I'm going somewhere better later because you never know, you may be. So I sit in the back, I have a fur coat. The waitress comes over, "What would you like to drink?" I said, "Do you have tea?" And they just sort of kind of looked at me for a second. And it's like, "We actually do serve tea." So they bought me a cup of tea.
They were expecting like a bottle of some hard liquor, Hennessy.
Right, all of that. I just want a cup of tea. So they bring me my tea. So I'm drinking my tea, this, that, and the other. And at the end of the night, the guys that were filming the event came over to me and they said, "Where are you from?" I'm like, "I'm from here. I mean, I live here, whatever." They're like, "No, where are you from? Like, who do you work with? Like, who are you? Like, you're somebody." I said, "Well, why would you say that?" They said, "Because everybody else here was drinking alcohol." They said, "You ordered tea." They said, "We watched you the whole night. You sat here, you didn't say anything to anybody. You ordered a cup of tea, and people would walk over to you and speak. You never got up to go speak to anybody. So who are you?" I'm like, "I'm not anybody." But the thing is, that's just how I am when I'm out, because I was paying attention. I was there for business. Business for me was a something I was invited to, and I was asked to, take a look at the people performing and so forth. So that's what I was doing. I was on the job for me. I wasn't just at the club, So different people came over and introduced themselves and asked me who I was just because I did not look like everybody else that was there. So, I don't know if I've answered your question.
No, you
properly,
have.
But
it seems like there's not a thing as being overdressed. It seems that you always be ready because you never know what's expected, what can spontaneously come out of one situation. So you always want to be prepared. When you kind of stay ready, you're always prepared for the next opportunity that may just pop along the way. So that definitely answered the question. So don't worry about overdressing. Always be prepared. Always look your best, from Mr. American Couture himself, as he said. All right. So what would you say in terms of cost? Does it make a difference if I dress up in a $3,000 suit versus a $300 suit? They look exactly the same. Does it make a difference in terms of the price tag?
Well, $300 and $3,000. No, I mean, $300 is still a lot of money for a suit. So it's still going to be a good suit. So if you said a $49.95 versus $300 versus $3,000, then yes, it makes a huge difference.
Okay, let's break that down. Actually,
a $49.
Let's start with the $49. Break that down to me.
That's gonna.
I've done that too.
Right, that's gonna be cheap material. I mean, you can find some things that's worth buying for $50, a jacket, maybe even a whole suit, depending on what season it is. Like you're not going to buy a winter suit for $50. Not a brand new one, not in a store setting. You might find one in the thrift store or something like that, which would make sense. But then it's not so much about how much you pay for something; it's about the quality of it. Yes, you could buy a $3,000 suit, but it may not be worth $3,000, versus buying a suit for $150 that's made so much better than the $3,000 suit. So it depends. It's all about the quality of the suit, and how much work and craftsmanship goes into
craftsmanship.
Right, goes into creating the actual garment. You can have somebody make a special made handcrafted suit for you that can take months, a bespoke outfit that can take months. You can get something that takes a couple of weeks. You can get something that takes a couple of days. You can buy off the rack, but you have to know what you're looking for. That's what I always tell people. Like most people go shopping, they pick up stuff like, oh, I just like it because I like it. Yeah. But they're not paying attention to, how is it actually put together, about how long will it last? What is the quality of the fabric? What do you have to do to maintain the fabric? Does it have to go to the dry cleaners? Can you throw it in a washing machine? Right. Or that type of thing. Some people don't realize that some fabric you can't even get wet. So you can buy a linen suit or a silk suit, but you cannot get it wet because once it's gotten wet, that particular fabric is stained. You cannot get it out. It doesn't come out. Right. So I'll
definitely not be buying those.
so you have to know what you're paying for and why you're paying for it, and then also where you're wearing it to. Linen wrinkles horribly. So you would never wear linen to an actual business, not any type of business meeting or anything like that, because it's going to wrinkle and all of that. And you'll, even though it may be expensive, you'll look disheveled. You'll look, it won't look expensive.
So it's not worth buying.
No.
Really?
No.
Okay.
That type of thing. So price is relative. And it's all based on not the price itself, but it's based on the quality of the garment that you're actually paying for. And then also how much you're willing to invest in something and why are you spending that type of money on it? If you're getting a man's suit, most people don't realize that a high-end man's suit can have over 100 pieces in it. It may not look like it, but if you open it up, it can have all types of padding and pieces and parts and all of that create the suit that gives it its shape, that holds its shape, so forth and so on, that's going to make it last for decades versus, buying something at Portobello that,
Portobello, I shopped there. I have definitely shopped there.
Lots of people shop there, but the thing is polyester is polyester and it doesn't wear well. You can only get a few wears out of it before you get lint balls on it that you can't get out, or it gets shiny because you ironed it and then you've burnt the material because the polyester threads in it. It's stuff that people never take into consideration, but once the sunlight hits it, it's obvious that it's a cheap suit.
So I got you. So what would you say for the ladies out there who likes their $3,000 Louis Vuitton shoes? They like to really dress up very expensively. Does that matter in terms of helping you in your business meeting, getting more clientele, or even a job interview that you may be going for? So when you say
let's say Louis Vuitton
Yes.
or Louboutins or Gucci, are we talking about the ones with the logos all on them, or are we just talking about the brand itself?
The price tag. We're talking about the price tag, like versus me buying, I don't know, women's shoes can cost anywhere from $50 to $100, $200.
They cost way more than that.
Way more than that. See, I don't even know.
They cost way
but
more.
I have seen Louis Vuitton shoes that are like $3,000, $4,000, $5,000. So do you see it as being worth an investment, buying one pair of shoes for that much money, or do you think having like several pairs of shoes for a couple $100 that you have a variety of, does it make you feel any better? Does it help improve your chance of succeeding or closing down on a client deal or not?
My suggestion with someone who is trying to build a wardrobe, say you have $1,000 to spend on shoes. Do you spend $1,000 on one pair of shoes, or do you spend $1,000 on 10 pair of shoes? My thing is, spend $1,000 on 10 pair of shoes. That way you have a variety to choose from. Because you can't wear that one pair of shoes to everything that you go to, because you may end up.
But it's Louis Vuitton though.
Right, it can be. But the thing is, you may end up seeing the same person or people at some point.
Yeah.
Even New York is not as big as people think it is. You know, my thing is, if you take the same route every day somewhere, you tend to see the same people if you go at the same time.
It's true.
Because I've encountered people more than, several times,
yeah,
taking the same route. But my thing,
like, I saw you wearing that shirt.
Exactly.
I saw you putting that shoes on the other day.
Exactly. The same, if you're wearing the same pair of shoes to every job interview, they're going to get worn down. They're going to get scuffed. And they're not going to go with everything unless you're buying a basic black or basic brown or basic tan shoe. My thing is, spend $1,000 on a collection of shoes. And I mean, from cheap to mid-range to expensive. Everything doesn't have to be an expensive shoe. Because if you have enough shoes to wear, you don't have to wear the same shoe over and over and wear it out. You can sort of kind of stretch it out and stretch out the life of the shoes that you're wearing. Also, in the same instance, everybody doesn't know what Louboutins are, or Louis Vuitton or Gucci or whatever on site. Some people do. So for the people that do know, let's say you do buy a pair of Louboutins this season, but let's say 4 seasons have passed. Okay.
Yeah.
A person that knows what season those shoes came out in, they're not going to be impressed that you have a pair from 4 seasons ago.
It's like the new Jordans, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
People who know.
Yeah.
So, and at the end of the day, you're not impressing anyone with that. So at the end, what you need to do is, if you're going to invest in something, I would say make the shoe classic, where it never goes out of style. And the fact that it may be a Louboutin or it may be Louis Vuitton or Ferragamo, I would put my money into a pair of Ferragamos before I would Louboutin.
Okay.
Simply because Ferragamos are more classic, classic. Something of that nature. Even a pair of Gucci, a certain style of Gucci, like the loafers and that type, they're classic. Right. They're never going out of style. That type of thing. But a trendy pair with a bunch of spikes on them or bright colors or something of that nature, I would never do that if that was the only money that I was getting to spend. It wouldn't make any sense. And it's not going to go with everything. And how professional can it be, with spikes sticking out of it, a whole bunch of bright peacock colors and things of that nature, be it a woman's shoe or a man's shoe. You don't want the shoes to talk more than you do, or people to pay more attention to your shoes than they're paying attention to you or maybe your full ensemble.
Okay. Good, very good point that you brought up here. So I remember that I went on an interview. I was about 17 years old, leaving high school, and the person said they wanted to meet up with me. At the time I was young, I didn't get the word interview, because if he said interview, I would have been dressed up. So I literally went with jeans and sneakers, and I was so blessed and fortunate at the time. And there's a person I still talk to till this day. He still is a high person at this library which I worked at, and it's such a crazy thing that happened, because I could have completely not even get that opportunity, because of relationships. I was fortunate enough, and he gave me a second chance, where he told me, why wasn't I dressed up? But it was also a learning experience for me, which is all the great points that Mr. American Couture brought himself. Is that we're always got to be prepared. No matter what meeting we're having with anyone, always be prepared for this, because I've made that mistake as well. Just hearing the word meet, be ready. You never know what can spontaneously come out. Have I had that knowledge prior, I would have been prepared. I would have been completely dressed up, but I didn't do that. But I was fortunate enough to get another chance. Now, when it comes to accessories, visually, many of us sometimes we like jewelry, we like certain accessories. Same thing. How much is too much for client meeting, going to an interview for both women and men?
Less is always more.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you don't need a whole bunch of jewelry on. It's sort of like it's like when a person opens their wallet,
yeah,
and they have 10 credit cards.
Yeah,
that person has no money. I learned that from a job that I had.
I have no money.
You're different. But as a rule, I used to work at a call center, and very specifically, I work with millionaires, American millionaires that would call in to this call center, and I was the only English-speaking American that worked for the company. So they were all my clients. And one guy said to me one day, he said, "Guess how many credit cards I have?" And I'm like, "I don't know, 10." No, it's like, "Nope, 1." He said, "Guess what my credit limit on it?" I'm like, "I don't know, like 10,000, 100,000." He's like, "Nope, $500." He said, he said, "A credit card is really for emergencies only." And that goes back to something my great grandmother used to say: "If I can't pay cash for it, I don't need it." And it's sort of the same thing with what you're saying about jewelry. If you're riding the subway, anybody that's dressed in head to toe with Louis Vuitton, all these, big bags, and look at me, look at me, look at me, they don't have any money. Whereas I could see a guy in ripped up jeans, a pair of Gucci loafers, one gold pinky ring, and a Mont Blanc pen. And I was like, he's rich. Rich people don't have to tell you that they're rich. They don't have to show you that they're rich. They don't have to have big name belts and things of that nature to say, I have money. Very, very small things tell people that somebody has money. Somebody's mannerisms can tell somebody that they have money. Same thing with jewelry. When you're dressing, like, you don't need to be ostentatious about wearing every piece of jewelry that you have in your jewelry box, or the biggest whatever that you have in your jewelry box. Normally, when I dress up or go out or do this or do that, I have things that are real and I have things that are not real, but I wear them all together. So I can be out somewhere and have a Louis Vuitton knapsack on that I paid $30 for. Yeah. And when somebody said, "Oh my God, I love your bag," I'm like, "Yeah, it's $30. You can get one too." There's like, "Oh, your bag, it wasn't 30," because no one would believe that I paid $30 for a bag. Yeah. Versus me having a real one that was $1,000. Because I have real ones as well. But my thing is, it's all in where am I going to be for the day. I don't need to carry a real Louis Vuitton downtown Brooklyn if I'm just going downtown.
It's kind of like people's wedding rings, right?
Right. Yeah. It's like at the end of the day, it's like, I was in a meeting one day with a lawyer, just me and her, and I like very shiny things. Yeah. I like, very bright, shiny things. So I had on this ring. It had a really huge cubic zirconia in a ring. It's a really beautiful ring. That's why I bought it and everything. So we're in a meeting and she's talking. Then she just stops in the middle of our conversation and she says, "I'm sorry." She said, "Can I ask you a personal question?" I'm like, "Sure." She said, "Is your ring real?" Mm-hmm. I'm like, "Well," I said, "You tell me." I said, "Because you've already made up your mind whether or not it is or it isn't.
Right.
So regardless if I can say it is, and if you in your mind say it isn't, then it will never be real. Versus me saying yes, it's fake.
Yeah.
And you're thinking he's only telling me that because he doesn't want me to know it's real. So I told her, I said, it doesn't make a difference what I say. Whatever you've made up in your mind, that's what it is. Because that's what it is. Like it does. People already have a preconceived notion of you as a person as to whether or not you can afford something or can't afford something. Whether you can or can't, they've already made up their mind. So I don't care what you tell them. Because if someone asks you, then that means they've already made up their mind about you. Mm. If they never ask, then it's not a concern. But if somebody asks you, that means that they have an opinion of you and everything. So you need to pay attention to that and that person as to why would they ask you something like that. So jewelry wise, I would say less is more. You don't need a whole bunch of jewelry, and you don't need people staring at your jewelry anyway. And also, wearing too much jewelry could get you in a situation where you don't get the job. Because they've like, okay, you got this on, that ring, this shirt. What do I need to hire you for? And exactly where's your money going? Because, I know how much this job pays, but you look like you spend way more. Right? You can afford way more than what I'm paying. So you're not going to be happy in this job because you're not going to be making enough to maintain that lifestyle. You see what I'm saying? So you can outdo yourself by dressing up. Like my mother says to me all the time, she's like, we can go into Kmart and buy a wardrobe and still look like we came out of Saks Fifth Avenue, because that's sort of a skill that my family has. We're about fashion. We've always been about fashion. So we don't have to go to the most expensive place to get the most expensive stuff. We know how to make it look like something, versus somebody who goes into Versace and buys the entire Versace wardrobe and still looks like garbage. Right. Because it's ill-fitted. It doesn't look right on them. You have to also be able to carry off clothes and carry off jewelry. Like having big, huge... Right. If you have big, huge earrings, but it doesn't look like it's something that you would wear, then it's always going to look like costume jewelry. You know what I mean? That type of thing. So
you got to be able to rock it. Well...
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. American Couture. So I hope that you are able to take something out of this. It's about being yourself. Always perceive yourself in the most optimal way as possible, because you never know what opportunity can come from, no matter what meeting, job interview that you may be having. So always dress for the occasion. Always be appropriate. Less is more. Do what you can afford, but you got to also be able to rock it and style it. It's about styling it. So you can buy $50 worth of a dress that includes the shoes and everything, but if you can rock it and make it look good, then you'll look like $1 million. So it's not about the price tag, but it's also about how you carry it and make it look upon yourself. And don't worry yourself so much about underdressing. You should always feel good about what you wear. So if you're overdressing for whatever the occasion, it's completely fine. And have I missed any other pointers that you spoke about today? Those were...
I think we've covered it pretty much.
We covered it all pretty much. All right. Well, thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. This is American Couture. Please like, subscribe, and share. If you have any suggestions, if you have anything that you would like to ask Mr. American Couture himself, please drop it in the comment below. We might be doing a part 2 to this series. Looking forward to seeing you next time. Peace. Cut.